In part 1, you guys saw a good method for how to get the helicopter onto the boat safely when you don't have to deal with a whole lot of wind or waves. In part 2, we're going to look at some different landing methods when you do have higher wind and bigger waves. Before we get too far into that though, I've got 2 quick tips for you. Tip number 1, don't stop the boat. When the boat's moving forward, it's a lot easier to predict the movement. Additionally, you only have to deal with the pitching up and down and not that left to right rolling motion that can occur when the boat is stopped. Tip number 2, don't be afraid to turn the boat. The MD500 is an awesome helicopter and it gives you a decent amount of tail rotor authority. It can deal with a crosswind or a tailwind of up to 20 knots. However, if you feel like that's outside of your ability level, again, don't be afraid to hop on the radio and turn the boat so you can deal with a headwind rather than a crosswind or a tailwind. With that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right into it and see what it looks like when you're landing in those more aggressive conditions. We're picking up this approach after I've already looped around the back of the boat to cross-check the movement of the boat in terms of its pitching up and down and make sure the deck is clear for landing. You'll notice in this approach, unlike the one you saw in part 1, because there's a bit more wind and slightly larger waves, I'm actually running perpendicular with the boat. This means I have my nose pointed at the deck and then I'm using a fair amount of lateral cycling to keep the helicopter in line with the movement of the boat. The biggest thing I can tell you during approaches such as this one is to take your time with it and make sure you've got a good read on what the boat is doing. You'll notice before the helicopter crosses the lip of the boat, I actually pause for a moment, make sure I've got a good read on what the boat's doing before approaching forward. Then, once I'm over my spot or just about to be on top of my spot, I'll simply kick in a little bit of right pedal to get that helicopter lined up with the landing spot, and again, slide it into place a little bit. This approach is starting with a tight right-hand descending turn. The reason for this turn, as opposed to me looping around the back of the boat as I usually would, is because I'm trying to get back to the boat before it enters the rain cell that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, that cell that you can see is also what's causing the higher wind and larger waves. In this case, there's a 20 gusting 25 knot wind coming off the rain cell. Keep in mind, because the boat's moving at 10 knots into the wind, those winds are going to compound. So, to the helicopter, it actually feels like a 30 gusting 35 knot wind. If you pay attention to the bow of the boat, you'll notice that some of the waves are so large, they're actually breaking over the bow. On days like this one, you have to approach the boat from a steeper angle to ensure the boat doesn't pitch up and contact the skids of the helicopter as you're coming into land. While I'm tracking the movement of the boat by inputting a fair amount of right cyclic, you may notice the helicopter rocking a bit. Those are the wind gusts affecting the flight pattern of the helicopter. On days like this, the most vital thing is to keep the helicopter in a stable attitude while approaching. This means keeping the nose level and tracking the movement of the boat as accurately as possible. Notice, as I approach the lip of the deck, I actually pause momentarily to assess the movement of the boat before proceeding forward. As I get over the deck, I'm going to start to get hit with updrafts and downdrafts off the side of the boat, so there's quite a bit of fighting that has to go on to make sure I keep the helicopter lined up with my landing spot. This approach is a pretty straightforward one. The boat's in the middle of a set, so I can't move it to make the winds more favorable. In this case, I've got an 18-knot wind coming off the back of the boat, which means if I were to do a normal approach, I'd be approaching with a left crosswind, which quite frankly isn't my favorite. So, instead of approaching with a crosswind, I simply approach the boat more from the front to give myself more of a headwind, and then as I come over the deck, I'm just going to slowly turn the helicopter to the right. Keep in mind, because there's wind coming off the back of the boat, or in this case the left-hand side of the helicopter, I'm going to get quite a bit of mechanical turbulence, so there is a little bit more pedal work involved as you come in over your spot. That's all I've got for now, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, if you guys enjoy the channel or enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe, and if you have questions or there's something that you guys want to see, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Alright, if you guys already watched part 1, that was a quick video on basically how I like to do my approaches to the boat when the waves are pretty calm and into that, there are a couple tips and God damn it. Okay. So in part 1, you guys saw a great method to land on the boat. So, fuck. All right. To give you a quick synopsis. How to land a helicopter on a boat? I don't know. Okay. So. Okay.